Hello and welcome to the Tabletop Gaming Magazine podcast. I'm Chris Eggett, the editor of the magazine, and today I'm joined by Alex, a writer for the magazine. Hi, Alex.
Hi, Chris. Hi, how you doing?
I'm all right. How are you?
Yeah, I am tired, but I feel like we're allowed to hope that this whole thing will end, that it's summer and it's warming, and I don't know if I should be kind of cautiously optimistic about this hope, but I am in a hopeful mood lately.
Yeah, that's great. I am too. I am primed for beer gardens,
Oh, yes.
for sunshine generally, vitamin D. I've never needed it more. And so, but we're obviously going from the sunshine immediately into the subject.
Yeah, to complete darkness, to the complete opposite of the sunshine and the hope and everything we're feeling.
to maybe like one of the most like ambiently sorrowful like series of games, and and or like as the thematic layer to particularly one game, which is Bloodborne, the board game, which
That's the one.
Which you reviewed a couple of issues ago.
Yeah.
And you said it was quite good.
I quite like it, yeah.
Yeah, and then I got myself a copy, and I sort of immediately emailed you, maybe like just maybe minutes after my first game, I don't know, finished, or first session finished. Just like, we probably need to talk about this, because I'm so excited that it's this good.
I know, like, you couldn't dare to hope, really, after a bit of a Dark Souls disaster. And I'm still one of those people that, there is about 3 shelves in our study occupied by Dark Souls board games, so I'm hardly the one to throw stones in its way, but still, one could dream, and the dream came true.
Yeah, actually did. It's hilarious.
Yeah.
I can't believe it. Because, okay, so let's say what it is. It's a Eric Lang and Michael Sinnell, I believe I'm saying his name right, miniatures wands around the dungeon bashing things game.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
With some story, I have to say, because when a lot of the run around the dungeon bashing games, they don't really have a story that I feel this game does a very good job, considering Bloodborne lore is famously obtuse. Unless you find and read descriptions of every single item in the game, you have no idea what's going on. And I found this one very helpful, actually, just reading through the story of the board game.
Yeah, actually, you're quite right there. Okay, so we should start. We should set some. So we know roughly what it is, and then I suppose we should also say which of the video games we've played and in what order. I think, because I think that's an interesting question as to what order you went through the FromSoft games.
So funnily enough, Bloodborne was my first FromSoft game. But here's the thing, I think I'm a little bit of a weirdo in the sense is that I've never played any of the FromSoft games as a solo game. I have a group of friends and we started co-oping Bloodborne together, and then we had so much fun we went through basically the Dark Souls series together. Haven't played the Demon Souls yet, but went through the Dark Souls series together. But I think Bloodborne, maybe because it was the first one, or maybe because we got stuck on a particular boss and it became like every night, we're going to try it again kind of thing. Like, it's the one that was the most memorable out of them. Like, I probably struggle to remember. I remember Dark Souls 2 pretty well, but Dark Souls 1, and I don't think we've ever been in Dark Souls 3, I have to say. I think we kind of got tet bored towards the end. I don't know if the Souls fans are gonna now
that's me immolated somewhere.
Yeah.
The thing is, it doesn't matter because whatever rating, ranking, or order you put them in, they're wrong to someone. So
absolutely.
So for me, I've not played Bloodborne at all, and so I've seen it played a few times, and my path through the Dark Souls games was playing Demon Souls, then 2, then 3, and I've still not finished 1. And I think 3 is maybe the best game for me, just because it's like, just in terms of like I've forgotten the word for it. Comfort elements. What would you
Mm-hmm.
call that? Playability improvements. Just nice things that make the game like kind of easier.
User experience?
Yeah, improved user experience. I've completely forgotten the word that people use for this all the time, and that I use regularly. Never mind, it's the afternoon. So it's just so that's probably my favourite. And as you say, the stories of these games are completely obtuse. They are the definition of world building through the levels, through the level design, through the objects, through the ambient things you pick up, and you sort of have to get any lore out of it. You have to do some kind of basically you have to build a conspiracy theory between two objects.
Yeah, you have to have one of those crazy boards with threads from all the different directions.
That's it.
Yeah, but yeah, I think that's kind of what's so interesting about them, because there is not a straightforward storyline or straightforward narrative. And a lot of things you've learned, they're out of sequence. Sometimes they're out of place. Sometimes you find something and you've realized it was a hint or part of the story to the thing you encountered 3 or 4 hours ago. And sometimes you just gotta go to YouTube and watch someone much cleverer than you explain to you what the heck is going on.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm currently trying to work out, and this is because occasionally I do these deep dives into the Dark Souls lore, just because you sort of get a little question, you sort of scratch at it, and you just go, okay, let's read some weirdos on Reddit. They will tell me, they will tell me what they think the answer is. My current question is, who is the Queen of Lothric, which is the main kingdom in Dark Souls 3, and so I'm going to just, if you know who the Queen of Lothric is, please leave a comment below wherever this is being posted. So that, and the answer is no one knows ultimately, because that's always the answer, really.
Is she the one that becomes the mother to the child that Margot babysits later? That's an interesting question now.
Yeah, see, there we go.
There we go.
So so I think there is something like that. There's the child who becomes an angel in the big cage thing, in the archives.
Yes, so there is. I don't know if I think that's the mother, but I can't remember the names, and that's again why all the hardcore Souls fans will throw stones at us.
Yeah.
But essentially, you encounter a boss called Margot's wet nurse, and I think Margot is gruesomely the result of a miscarriage. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is
we're talking about something else.
I was talking about Dark Souls 3.
Oh, right. There you go.
But they said this is the thing, right? So then you get to the point where because things must be connected by by pieces of string on a corkboard. So how do we connect Dark Souls and Bloodborne? And people tell me it's because the game is becoming increasingly more about blood, and so the Bloodborne series is something that comes out the other end of the Dark Souls series. Another 100 cycles later or whatever. And partially from the Wolves of Farron or something like that. Anyway, we are off the reservation and right into the deepest part of the lore here. Gone.
But I think what this all proves is that you can still enjoy all these games. You have no clue what is going on.
Yeah,
because clearly we don't really know.
No, and importantly, the people who say they do know don't either. They've got no idea, and it's even the people who write the game are in the Reddit threads arguing about things, as I've seen recently, which I think is hilarious. They translate this doesn't translate like that, and that sort of thing. People who originally wrote the Japanese version of it. So it's a hilarious mess. And so you think actually adapting these games will be difficult, as we have seen before. But in Bloodborne, it's perfect. It's an almost perfect adaptation, I think, because the main loops of these games are you have to manage your stamina while running around. It's really deadly.
Very deadly.
But also, dying isn't the end. You're going to come back. You might be made weaker, or it might cost you resources in some way. But it's not the end. You're gonna come back and have another run at it, because it all comes from this sort of roguelike history, right? This is like kind of the central premise is. I suppose it's not. Is it? No. I guess it's just dungeon crawling. It's not roguelike, is it? Because roguelikes are one kill and you're dead.
Well, with roguelikes, you always start from the beginning, right?
Yeah.
And you can you learn and can acquire some path. So I guess in the sense, it has those elements, but there's always with the Souls game is that you die, you come back, you learn, and you repeat until you beat it.
Yeah.
Basically, that's what you do.
Yeah, it's like the learning curve is similar. Sorry, you're quite right. I guess that's what I was thinking about. So, would you like to explain how the game works for our listeners?
I will do my best. Yeah. So, this, very excitingly, this game has no dice for me. And I think that's the first thing to notice, because, as you said, everything here is it's a calculation every step, because you run out of stamina, you run out of cards, you can't dodge someone's really hard hit anymore. But essentially, you lay down the tiles to explore Yharnam or the Forbidden Forest, depending whether you have the base game and expansion or the Chalice Dungeons, as to speak. And each tile will present a monster, a piece of story, or maybe a chest where you can pick up some consumables. But everything you do sort of for your trick weapon, which usually has 3 or 2 spaces where you play cards to fight. And your cards are very finite and very precious resource, because you do everything with cards. You fight with cards, you dodge with cards, you interact object with cards, you move. So basically, if you want to do anything, you have to discard the cards. And you only start really with 3. So that already limits everything you do. And every time you do something, you're like, okay, I can move into that room, and I'm going to spend a card to do it. But if I enter that room, there might be a monster there. Are these cards good enough to fight? Can I take a sidestep and maybe pick up a consumable and then move into the room? But then I spend 2 cards and I only have 1 card to potentially fend off attack. And it becomes really, really tight and more kind of complex than it is. And yes, of course, there's a little bit of a luck element, because you're drawing randomly through your deck. The deck you can't augment. But there's a tiny random element. But at the same time, you kind of know what is in your deck, and you know what your capabilities are, and you kind of know, okay, I have that many dodge cards left. So, if I go there and fight, I have these kind of chances to sort of survive the attack that's coming to me.
Yeah, so I think that's a really good point there, which is that that deck of cards you have, which is 12 cards, you always have 12 cards. When you upgrade your deck, when you return to the Hunter's Dream, you will swap cards out. You never go above 12, which is really good, because it means your deck consistency is always really solid. And once you've upgraded a little bit, once you're on a hunt, you feel quite powerful. And also, because I don't think there's any requirement, unless I've been playing it wrong, to keep the same balance of cards in your deck. You don't have to swap a green for green, and I think green is the dodging card.
Yeah, green is the dodging one. But yes, I think there's 3. So you got your attack, your dodge, and you draw.
And stagger as well.
And stagger. So
3 of
4
each.
different types.
Yeah. And then...
Yeah, and you start with 3 of each at the beginning, and then you can upgrade them to a more powerful of the same type. But I always find it that you kind of have to make sure it works with your trick weapon. So in here, you select a character, but it's not so much based on your character, it's based on the weapon that you choose. And the weapon has a bit of an abilities as well. And you might find someone who does other things when you dodge. And in that sense, you want to pick up more dodge cards and replace the other ones. Or maybe the one that staggers or does something different. So then you can kind of decide, okay, I don't actually need that 3rd draw card. I'm going to replace it for an extra dodge card instead.
Yeah, exactly. And that's really like, I don't know, it feels like the way you build your strategy in the games. And I think this is going to be a phrase that I'm going to come back to again and again. It's like an almost 1-to-1 feeling of how you, because maybe not Bloodborne, because the Bloodborne is slightly more restrictive in terms of the weapons you can pick up. the Dark Souls games, you kind of decide what kind of weapon you're going to use, but then you're going to sort of and build towards better and better versions of it by building the stats of your character. And that's, so if you decide to be a strength character with a big heavy weapon, you hit things once and that's it. That's fine. And that's how you're going to play the game. Or you become a dex character and you do, lots of small attacks to chip away at people. And the game lets you do that here as well in a similar sort of way. And again, it's like a really nice representation of how it works in the game, and it feels the same.
But it's not, the thing is, and for the nature of doing reviews for the mag, I reviewed quite a few, this video game to board games adaptation, and I feel like a lot of them take it almost too literally, and they just take, okay, so this is mechanic in a video game, and we're just gonna make the same sort of thing but in a board game format, and it just doesn't work. But I never feel like Bloodborne ever really does this. You still feel a sense of danger playing it like you would in a normal game, and you still get your weapon, your transformation of the weapon is a big element, but the way this game does it still does very appropriately to how a board game would behave. So it takes all these core ideas that make Bloodborne what it is, and then it's like, okay, so how would you represent the same feeling rather than representing the same mechanic?
Yeah, it's like translating metaphor rather than translating the one-to-one mechanic of it. Because obviously, it's one of those things where you see some dungeon crawler games where they've got like a stat system, right? And it's a stat system from the video game, basically. And it's this thing of like, okay, but you know where that stat system came from, right? It's like, that's Dungeons and Dragons, right? That's why they were trying to make a video game of Dungeons and Dragons at some point, and that's become the video game. And now the video game is, you're trying to bring it back to an analog form, and you couldn't think, should I shortcut that and think of something slightly different, or just play Dungeons and Dragons? Actually, that's fine. And so it's just like there's an attempt for this like. Not fidelity necessarily, but as you say, like slavish kind of attachment to the mechanics of the video games, which sometimes just comes out rubbish, But this is really, really one. I'm looking over my shoulder here because that's where it is. It's just set up. I was trying to run through a Chalice Dungeon because it only arrived this week. I was hoping to get through a few proper games.
These are hard.
Yeah,
they are so hard.
So sorry, because we should talk about Chalice Dungeons. But
yes.
Before we should just finish explaining how it works, which is on top of all of that stuff, you will run into other hunters. You'll run into bosses, and they have their own decks, which act slightly differently. When you're fighting things, usually you just use the generic deck and it tells you whether they're doing a basic or special attack. Each monster you're fighting, which you choose 3 of at the start, has a different set of attacks for basic and special and ability as well. And they've got speed, and so when you're fighting, the one who hits first, does the damage first and that sort of thing. It's all very intuitive. There's not really much to think about. And yeah, obviously I still get my ass kicked repeatedly by this game. And then leveling up is simply a case of you've killed some dudes, you get some what are they like? Are they blood vials?
Blood echoes.
Blood echoes.
Blood echoes.
The vials are the health thing, aren't they? Blood echoes, and then you can return to the Hunter's Dream from wherever you like. You can just go back. You can just leave at any time, and why is that? Because that's how it works in the video game, and pretty much, yeah.
Well, when you die, yes. Otherwise, you have to go to a lantern in a video game, so it's slightly different.
That's true. Sorry, yes.
In this sense, yeah.
Yeah. Is there not like a so in the Dark Souls games they have like a homeward bone thing?
Yeah, I think you still have some elements. I haven't used them much in Bloodborne because we haven't really needed to that much. But yeah. You sort of have to go to the lantern, return to Hunter's Dream is your sort of outpost because you always return to it to travel anywhere else. So you go unlock the lantern, beat the area, return to Hunter's Dream, go to the next one. It's kind of like a crazy loop almost, which always ends in Hunter's Dream.
Yeah, and that's where you get to level up. And in this game, that means buy some cards to add to your deck, and the exchange rate is simply one echo to one card. Brilliant, done. That's it.
Yeah.
I'm so excited because it was so simple and nearly everything made sense immediately to me. So that's which is. I suppose this is a point where I should say, not all games do that kind of one-to-one feeling very well. And I think the Dark Souls game, because we spoke before starting this call, that we'd only give Dark Souls a small kicking. But one of the great disappointments of it is that it didn't really have a system for upgrading in this way. It did have a system for upgrading, but it didn't feel like you could just pop back when you needed to. You were just in the dungeon, weren't you, until you died, more or less.
Yeah, I'm just not trying to remember, but in I think the difference between popping back to in sort of into the death space in Dark Souls versus here is that in Bloodborne you have a track. And every time you go to the Hunter's Dream, you move along the track. So your kind of point where you run out of time and lose grows closer.
Yeah.
And I think that's why it kind of feels a bit more internal. Where in Dark Souls, you almost using, what is it?
Bonfires.
Bonfire. Thank you. I was going to say fireplace, and I was like, that has nothing to do with it. You always use bonfire as a resource because there wasn't really. I think you had a limited number of them that you could use.
Yeah,
then that's it. Whereas I think in Bloodborne, again, you just have to think a little bit more because you're like, okay, there's still this amount of stuff I need to do. Can I actually pop in Hunter's Dream, or do I not have time?
Yeah. But you also. In this game, you do have to go back. And I think you do have to do that in the Dark Souls board game as well. You do have to go back, and that's why it being like a limited resource in that way is kind of more painful. I mean, the Dark Souls card game, which I like quite a lot, that also has a similar. You can only use the bonfire 5 times. And it's just like that's not how it works in the video game. So that's not how I don't want it to work like that here. And it's fine. It's actually fine. I like that card game a lot. But I think, again, it's just one of those things where it doesn't represent it properly. So you just sort of kind of go, oh, this isn't quite right. This isn't quite right.
Yeah, I think it's someone looked at that idea and thought, okay, that's what it is. And then they didn't quite get why it worked the way it worked in the video game. But in Bloodborne, once again, I think they did. They kind of got it what it was.
Yeah. But yeah, as you say, the main threat is that time ticking down. And every time you go back or every time you return, I can't remember what the actual trigger is, you move along the track one more, which also has these little red dots on it, which are sort of like trigger points for example, enemies respawning in certain locations.
Or, very annoyingly gaining all their health back because that happened.
Yeah, that happens a lot. Yeah. And yeah, so my experiences of playing this game are playing with my brother, having this really genuine experience of stumbling into a room, not realizing a fog gate would come down and a boss battle was about to start.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's how you played it the first time, whether you knew that like something's bad's going to happen in here.
Well, so another element that we kind of alluded to, but we haven't really explained to, is that you've got this deck of cards which tells you the story. And in a sense, it's a little bit like legacy games because the things that happen and depending on where you go and which NPCs you interact with or which quests you complete, things will be slightly different. Not massively. I don't think it's, the level of it will be a completely different game how you get it in many legacy ones, but there will always be something that will just, that little change that will make the next gameplay spicy. And every time you turn over that card and it says something, you go, uh-oh, something bad's about to happen. But yeah, the first time when the fog went up and you end up kind of being stuck in this room within the monster, and then that monster is pretty strong and hits pretty hard, and you were not prepared for it at all. You go to Hunter's Dream and you're like, okay, I'm kind of glad to be dead in the Hunter's Dream right now.
That's it.
Yeah.
Which, again, a genuine experience from the video game. Like, I didn't realize this was the boss room.
Yeah.
I think...
I just wandered in this peaceful cathedral and there was this lady praying at the altar. Oh, wait, hang on. She turns into a big beast and she killed me. Oops.
Yeah, it's just... which, as you can hear in the joy in Alex's voice here, is like again a fundamental joy of these games. So, and it just they captured it so well. That's how the game works. So, what has your experience been of it so far?
I have to say the first couple of plays were a bit of a struggle, and I'm glad I kind of persevered because. This was a board game that we kickstarted because obviously big fans and Michael Chanel and Eric Lang. You just assume there is quality with these names, and there is. So it was a very much anticipated Kickstarter. But when we first got it, I think we just struggled with the rules a little bit, and getting them, and it took a little bit of. A couple of plays, and every time you put it away, I put it away for a couple of months, and we came back, and we just, the first thing we decided to play after we came back to it after a couple of weeks was to play a Chalice Dungeon, which are really hard anyway. So, that didn't end up well because we were like, oh, is that how you do it again? Okay, that's how you do it again. Oh, wait, we're dead. So that happened. But then we've actually played through and the Fall of Old Yharnam scenario, and got right to the end, and we did lose it in the end, but it was literally the kind of why you don't. I mean, you do feel sad that you lost it. You played through 3 chapters of this thing. That's about I'd say at least 2 hours that we've put on the table, probably more. So of course you feel a little bit disappointed that you lost, but we could pinpoint a specific turn where things went wrong and we lost time, and that's why we didn't have enough time to beat the final boss. It was literally a mere one turn gone wrong, and it wasn't just it was a freak accident. The tiles that we needed were too far away. We spent too long doing something, and being able to say exactly what we did wrong, and if we didn't do it, it would have turned out the other way. It was kind of a really satisfying experience on its own, maybe in some kind of crazy masochistic Bloodborne way, but that's how that worked.
That's right. That's the same. That's like playing the video game and then knowing that yes, on the run back to the boss from the bonfire or the from the lantern, that you got I got hit by that guy, which means I had to use up one of my blood vials, which means that I didn't have that resource in the boss fight. And if I'd been able to just have a little bit more healing, I would have done it. And it's these sort of things that you think about strategy wise that translate so nicely to this. And similarly, the co-op play in these games is very much like someone's visiting someone else, in their world, and so. The way we played it, because this is how we play the video game, is kind of one of you ends up feeling a bit like a visitor and being kind of a little bit sacrificial occasionally. I don't know if you ended up doing that sort of thing, where it's just like, I'm probably gonna die here, but it'd be better if you run now, that's fine, that sort of thing.
Well, that's part of the co-op experience. Sometimes you just gotta sacrifice someone because, you gotta stay there. So either the monsters don't move or you gotta escape to the Hunter's Dream now, or you're gonna, lose some time and you can upgrade, or you can respawn at a different lantern so you can complete that objective faster the next turn. So you can very easily. Again, there is a sort of little randomness, with how the tiles come out, with how the cards, but you can actually calculate your time and figure out, do I have enough time to do this, just by saying, okay, this how long it's going to take me to go there and pick up this, and this how many cards I'm going to use, and it becomes what I think the Souls games are. They're more about skill and technique. And learning your surroundings and the behaviors of things around you, and how to adapt to them. And that's what it kind of that is what the Bloodborne board game tries to do with all this kind of card manipulations and the time track. And I forgot where I started going with that sentence, but this is where I'm going to end with it. I'm sure I had a point there somewhere.
So I think then, as we have returned to the Hunter's Dream of that sentence, I suppose we could talk a bit about the Chalice Dungeons. Now, I've only played maybe 25 minutes of it in total. And
was it hard?
Yes. And I was really lucky with my tile draws as well. So the Chalice Dungeons are kind of like it's just a challenge mode, really. If you just thought dying in the main game was too difficult, it was too difficult to die in the main game. If you found that difficult, they've given you more ways to make that easier for you to die. And I was very lucky. So the way it works is you have a starter tile, and then you have a arena tile, an arena entrance tile, and then you have a couple of levers you have to pull, which usually, I assume, you have to search through your stack of cards for, your stack of tiles for. But in my case, it was the top card, and then the next two cards were lever cards. So
that's very, very nice. Yeah.
This is like one of those, because I believe in the video game they're all like glyph associated or something, so you can put in a code to go to a certain one, and so this would be the one which you go to grind a boss or something, I'm sure, because it was such a short little dungeon that I ended up setting up. It's still absolutely brutal. Though I died a couple of times here, because what they add to it is something called Chalice Rights. He says, reading the back of the card upside down over there, to remind himself. And these are like just things to ruin your day.
Yeah, because again, the normal game wasn't hard enough, and this one not only generally has harder enemies that you fight, it also has the rights that are just nasty. They I can't remember. Oh, the one that we picked up, which was really annoying, is that it basically made your stagger not work. We couldn't really stagger anything in our fight, so that turned out great.
That sounds fabulous. That sounds like exactly what you want. I had one that turned one of my 3 slots on my weapon, meant that I couldn't use it for dodging. The character I'd picked, the weapon I'd picked for the character, is one that their like ability they have is that when you dodge, you do one extra damage to someone in the area. I actually
love that weapon.
Yeah. Is that one from the Chalice Dungeons and then from the base game? So we're going to go deep here. There's the character who has like, I'm just going to call it lifesteal on their weapon. So one of their attacks, they heal for that amount. Yeah. So if you're boosting it, you can do loads of damage and heal back up, usually through the damage of a normal enemy's attack anyway. This Chalice Rights card stopped me being able to dodge with one of my slots. Which means that I'm sort of hampered by the strength that I had. It's like I didn't pick that card. The cards didn't know. That was a random one I got. The other one I got spawned a aggressive hunter on each of the levers. So just like immediate mini boss fight, basically. Oh, it was one of the minion types, because sort of 3 minion types you take into every dungeon, and the boss has +1, unless I've killed enough of those original minion types. So it kind of encourages me to go and farm basically those minions until I've cleared that chalice right, dungeon right thing.
Yeah.
And it just hampers you massively, and it's brilliant. Just,
it's harder, but it's also easier to get into because with the main story, you've got the story and you've got the chapters, and obviously you want to go for the whole story. This one is a very simple. You're in a dungeon, go kill them monsters.
Yeah.
Go you. So it's easier to set up and go, and you don't have to worry about, sorting out all the chapter cards in the same order.
Yeah.
But that's why it's also harder, because they're like, well, we made one element of the game easier, we're going to make another one harder.
Yeah, as I say, I only played this briefly, but I know this is like the version that I'm going to play, like, in a year's time or 5 years' time or whatever. This is going to be the version I play. I'm probably not going to go through the adventures again necessarily, although there is variation within them.
There is slight, yeah.
So, and they're quite long as well, I think. I felt like the adventures quite long anyway. There's 3 in the main box. I think we got halfway through. Yes, we did the first 2 chapters of the church one, which is great. It was fabulous. Although we did do a thing of so each mission has each chapter has a main hunt mission or requirement to complete it, and then it also has these like insight missions, they're called, I think, and they're like bonus missions. You usually get a treat for doing it.
Yeah, it's like your side quests.
Yeah, but we got completely sidetracked and forgot what the main mission was, basically, and ended up completing all the insight missions and then going, oh, where are we going to be? Oh, the hunt card, the main hunt card. Yeah, we'd put something on top of that on the table, and that has sort of skewed us slightly. So.
But they usually, I mean, I don't know if it's in all of them because I haven't played all of them, but in the ones that we have played for, you usually need to complete a couple of side quests to actually progress with those main hunt ones. But you can get carried away with just like, oh, someone there needs our help, or we need to bring this thing to this other hunter. Yeah. Oh, I'm just going to go do that. And then, oh, the time has run out and we lost. So the question for you then, do you think if you know nothing about Bloodborne and Dark Souls, you'll enjoy this game?
Yeah, I think so. Because there is the rulebook problem.
Just a tiny one, yeah.
But only a little bit, I think. I think it's like a rulebook that's it's just a little bit tricky about how it phrases things, and that's what it is for me. So for me, because I know this type of game, even though I've not actually played Bloodborne, because I know this kind of game, I felt like I was able to translate it in my head very easily. So I guess me saying, yes, everyone's going to love it is maybe not true, because I think the learning curve for someone who's maybe never played this kind of game before would be quite difficult. I think if it was taught to them, though, I think then, yes, I think it'd be very rewarding for almost anyone, I would say. But maybe I'm just an evangelist at this point.
Do you know, I feel like it's almost the other way around. I feel maybe I struggled with the rule book so much is because I've played so many of these games, and I almost felt like generally the rule of Bloodborne rulebook, if it says something, it says it. If it doesn't specify something particularly, it doesn't happen. Yeah. So for example, in the case, and because I get to read rules so much just, for playing games and reviewing games, and I'm used to some kind of rules being that way or another. I always go, so does it mean this or does it mean that? So an example that I can give, it's just, in your Chalice Dungeon, it goes, you pull your 2 levers and it opens your arena room, wherever it is. And in my head, I went, do you have to pull them at the same time? Like, it doesn't say it anywhere, but that's the question I have to ask, because I kind of went for like a similar games where that was a requisite. That you have to be in two rooms, and you and your partner in co-op game had to pull this at the same time. And then you go into this rabbit hole, spending 10 minutes going on Board Game Geek and the FAQs and in the forums, and it didn't say you had to pull it at the same time. So why are you thinking about that? And because the rulebook is slightly ambiguous in that way, it kind of almost encouraged my mind wandering and going and asking, but can you do this? And it's like, no, we didn't say that. You can't. So just don't worry about it. But funnily enough, I'm quite interested, because after me playing it, I very gently encouraged and two of my other friends to get it, who are not necessarily huge board game players, but they do play occasionally. And I don't know yet. I don't know if they have played, but I am very interested to know how they got along with the rule book, and how they got along with the kind of complexity of the game, because it's not a majorly complex game, but it's also not the easiest one, just in terms of understanding mechanics, not actual play.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that is a thing that kind of tripped me up as well. That's exactly what you're saying there in terms of the rulebook doesn't say it, so stop asking questions.
Yeah,
it's basically what you should do, but I can't. I can't do that, because I feel like maybe something fundamental is missing, and that's always what it comes down to, which is you end up looking in the rulebook for something that isn't there, and that's kind of the frustration we run into. And I will say, getting this out to just have a quick run through. I did get the main book out as well to remind myself of, like, do I place a card into a weapon slot to move? Like, no, of course you don't. Of course you don't. Like, it says just discard it. That's fine. And think just little things like that, where I was like, I just remember. I was like, oh, but this represents my stamina. It's like, no, Chris, you've decided it represents your stamina. That's not what the game hasn't told you that. That's the metaphor that you've applied to it afterwards. Because it kind of does. It does. Yeah. But in combat, not not all the time. So, yeah, really, I think it is accessible. I feel it is accessible. Do you have a favorite boss?
Boss. I want to say I've recently had a very uncomfortable encounter with Bloodstarved Beast, so it's on my mind right now. So I'm gonna say Bloodstarved Beast.
Yeah.
Because it's not the biggest boss in the board game, but it's a nasty one.
yeah. It's that's not the biggest one. What is the biggest one? As in literally the biggest mini. I can't remember at the base game.
The biggest one is another.
Is it the Cleric Beast thing?
Yes, it is the Cleric Beast, I think. Yes.
Yeah. Because that's just like I know it's barely worth saying, but there's some cool minis in this box.
Yeah. Did you not realize there's some cool minis? It's a cool mini or not game.
Yeah, I did. I also didn't realize that I was going to get a really long dog in the Chalice Dungeon one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't remember what it's called.
Oh yeah.
I've not encountered it yet. But just a really long big dog, as far as I can tell.
But I'm actually kind of loving learning the names of the little monsters that you encounter in the game, but I've never, like female beast patient and male beast patient. I didn't know they were the same beast patient. I just went into that area and kicked their butts, and here I'm like, oh, I get to actually place them. I know what they are.
These yes, like the church servants. And it's like, okay, that's more interesting as a bit of characterization. They're a church servant, rather than, like, I don't know, you might just think it's the vicar or something. You know what I mean? It's like, I think there's lots of little bits like that in here.
Well, there's the crazy centipede monster that's called Fluorescent Flower.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah. I thought that was a boss. It's not. It's a normal one.
No, it's just normal one. And that's what we had for our Chalice Dungeon. This is the reason why we died.
So I got the little from the Chalice Dungeons. I got the little scorpions out. Because I thought I might as well just get poisoned all the time. Brilliant. That's going to be. Actually, and that's another little thing here which I like about it, which is the all of the status effects are really simple.
Yeah.
Because is it like fury? You just take an extra damage because you're being reckless, basically. Poison, you take a tick of damage at the end of your turn. I've forgotten what the other ones are, but they were all they were really sort of simply applied.
And there isn't actually that, if you think about it, there was always the miniature games count like bajillion tokens, and you always use one of them maybe for 5 seconds throughout the game, but you spend 10 minutes popping all of them out. But this one is actually quite conservative. There's some insight tokens, there's some blood echoes, there's some status effects, but it's very kind of minimal, you know.
And also they all kind of mean something very direct to your character. I think a token is much more valuable to you in playing if you look at a blood echo token. You're like, yeah, I got that because I killed that thing that was almost certainly going to kill me. I was just very lucky on the flip of the card on their on the enemy turn.
See, this is another thing. I don't think so the basic monsters, you flip the cards to see what they do. And I don't think we've cheered as much when we flipped over a card and it was a basic attack and we knew we would stagger and would move. It was like one of those, yes, like genuinely like shout in the living room because you're so excited. It turned out.
Yeah, that's it. Or if you're like my brother, you were card counting. He's a card counter, so he's like, I think there's one basic attack and one special attack in here. There's 2 cards left in this deck. It's literally 50-50. And then it's like, yes. Well,
sometimes you have to think about it because you have, some of the monster effects you can avoid with your cards. And you're like, well, is it worth saving this card? Because maybe they'll do the basic attack and then you can kind of get away with it. And sometimes you're just like, no matter what comes out, that's it. I'm done.
Yeah. Yes, there is that. Yeah. There are sometimes you just get stomped, sadly. But sadly, no, joyfully. No.
Joyfully. Yeah. This is a game, or in this very eldritch horror, gothic, dark atmosphere that's all about people turning into monsters and everything is trying to kill you, and you just enjoy dying in it and coming back and trying again. It's a very bizarre experience.
And I was just thinking that it's like this is like the best form of player elimination because it's not, obviously, but so
you get to come back
because you get to come back immediately. That's right. So I'm just thinking, is there anything else we need to say about this game?
That if you're listening to this, you should probably play it, Brady.
Yeah, I think so. I think everyone should play it and get a copy of the Chalice Dungeons as well, at least. I'm not sure. Actually, you've got the forest.
Yes. I've got the Forest expansion as well, which is opened but have not been played yet.
Oh, okay. So we don't know how it is yet. How does it look?
It looks beautiful. It was a tough choice because I think we've got like a limited Kickstarter edition, so maybe they are doing them, releasing them, but there's definitely things in there that when we were back in the Kickstarter, we were agonizing about it was agony between the levels that we love from the board game and the minis that genuinely look cool.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the forest one has a big spider, which I'm not a fan of, but the rest of the forest is beautiful.
That's very good. But for fans of spiders, the forest one is the one to go for.
Yeah, also, but who are you, though?
Don't write in.
Yes, please don't. Keep it to yourself.
That's right. Well, thank you, Alex, for joining me on this, which has just basically been a Bloodborne, the board game fan podcast.
Pretty much, yeah.
And just wanted to say it's good. That's all.
Hopefully, through this hour, we've managed to prove that we are better at playing board games than knowing the lore of Souls games.
Hopefully, although I am bad at both of those things, so it's not. I'm sure there's not a very big gap between.
But once again, you don't need to be good to enjoy dying.
No, you don't. Absolutely not. In fact, it's maybe the best part.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for joining us in this this hunter's dream of an episode. And
thank you very much for having me.
Where can we find you online? We know we can find you in print. You're in an excellent magazine called Tabletop Gaming Magazine.
Oh, I have heard of that excellent magazine.
It's very good, and also you're writing usually quite a lot of reviews for us, and you usually get the what I feel like are kind of the blockbusters. I usually try and send them your way. The if it's got like a couple of kilos of minis in it, and they're all the things I want. They're the things I want to get in for me because I want to play them, but I know that I can't commit the time to it, and so you have to, suffer with them.
Do you know what? I know we're kind of running over, but one of the latest blockbusters that you came that I was all ready to play, which was a kind of a new investment for me. It was Shadows of Brimstone, which is a heavy miniatures game.
Yeah, I'm so sorry.
I don't realize that you have to assemble the miniatures. That was the first one.
Oh no, do you? I did actually not know that. Oh my god.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
So since then we bought plastic clippers, we bought glue, and we bought files. It has been an experience.
Oh, Alex, I'm so sorry.
No, it has been fun. I mean, I didn't have to do anything. My partner had to do all of that. I was just like walking around while he was sitting there filing the little feet and gluing them to little places. But yeah, so that has been an experience.
Oh my god! Well, I must say, I will also say if anyone read Dan's review of Aliens: Another Glorious Day in the Corpse, they will know that it was pretty much a surprise to all of us, me included, who was going to have a quick game of it before I sent it out to him. When I opened the box, I was like, "Oh, that's a lot of sprues." So, okay. My apologies, Alex.
No. Was a game that you started playing and like assembled half of it and then went, nah, I'm just going to send it to Alex.
That was Fujikoro.
Yeah,
a game you actually quite liked. And
I did quite like that one.
You nearly sold me on that one. You can go back to listen to episode 2 of season 2, I think, for that. When we talked about messy games.
Bloodborne's definitely not messy.
It's not really, is it?
It's not really.
It does make a mess on the table because of the amount of cards you end up turning over and the sort of, the way we played it, which is like kind of feverishly trying to get through it. But yeah.
Oh God, I'm sorry. You were trying to finish this podcast.
No, it's good. One day we will. But where can we find you online, offline, wherever you like?
You can find me very occasionally on Twitter at @dastytube_, and I guess on Instagram, which I think is at dastytube, and that's about it. I like to be, mostly in the media that you can actually touch with your hands. I'm not very much a digital person these days, but please do tweet me your questions about board games and about Bloodborne. I will happily chat about that.
Excellent. And yes, and yet again, if you know who the Queen of Lothric is, let Alex know, and she can tell me.
I do, because I thought she was from a completely different game, because these names are very long and confuse me.
Yes, yeah, that's right. Well, thank you for listening to this Tabletop Game Magazine podcast, all about Bloodborne, and we will see you all very soon.
Thank you. Bye.